Hello, my name is Cristina Garrigós and I teach Literatura Norteamericana 2 at the UNED. And today we are going to discuss George Saunders' short story, Puppy. Puppy is a short story that is included in the collection 10th of December, which was published in 2013, and it had been published before in the New Yorker. So this is the most recent text that you are going to read in this course, and the last one. Okay, first a few words about the author, George Saunders. George Saunders was born in Amarillo, Texas in 1958. He studied geophysics at the university and worked in Sumatra in the oil fields. In an autobiographical piece from the brain-dead megaphone, Mr. Vonnegut in Sumatra, he says that every time he went to the jungle, he would take a suitcase full of books with him. And he mentions Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse 5 as a big influence on him. Critics have noticed that even though Saunders doesn't love the term political to describe his work, he believes in ethical fiction. That is, the idea that fiction should make us more involved in the world, which I guess is political too. Now, according to David Rando, Saunders has a great empathy for the dispossessed, the oppressed, or merely those whom history winners have walked all over on their path to glory, fame, or terrific wealth, to quote Rando. And as a matter of fact, Saunders knows himself very well what it is not to have a job and to be short of money. When he came back from Sumatra, he didn't have a job, and he had to live with his family for a while in a basement. He tells about this experience in his essay, Chicago, Christmas, 1984. After a while, he got a job as a roofer, and with that money, he enrolled in a course of creative writing at the University of Syracuse, where he is teaching nowadays. He started publishing in the New Yorker his short stories. He started with the first one in 1982, and since then he has gained critical and popular acclaim. Now, so far he has published 4 collection of short stories, which are Civil Warland in Bad Decline, Pastoralia, In Persuasion Nation, and 10th of December, which is the volume where Puppy is included, and that was published in 2013. It won the Folio Prize in 2014, and in 2013 the PEN Award for Excellence in Short Story. Also, he has written some a children's book, like The Very Persistent Gappers of Fripp, and a novella, The Brief and Frightening Reign of Phil. 2 collections of essay, The Brain-Dead Megaphone and Congratulations, By the Way. And in 2017, he published his only novel, to this day, Lincoln in the Bardo, which has won him the Man Booker Prize. Now, what do critics say about his work? Well, they have said, and this is a graphic novel too, I forgot, Fox 8. Now, critics say that he is the heir of Kurt Vonnegut and Thomas Pynchon. Well, I said that Slaughterhouse 5, you have read the first chapter, right, of Slaughterhouse 5, that was a big influence for him, and the work of Thomas Pynchon too. Now, some critics, such as Michael Basler, in an article titled Narrative Empathy in George Saunders' Short Fiction, notice that the fact that the author presents ethical dilemmas makes the reader confronted with a deliberate dilemma too. I mean, how the reader is confronted with what to do. What he or she would do in this situation. I think that this is something that we're going to see in Puppy. And the story, according to this critic, affects the compassionate engagement of the reader. Another, this essay is included in a collection which is probably the most complete collection on the work of George Saunders' critical essays, published in Palgrave Macmillan 2017. Adam Kelly says that the author is representative of an aesthetic that he calls new sincerity. For Kelly, Saunders' fiction is characterized for the role he gives to the reader, as the author and the reader were having a conversation, and the author being very sincere with the reader. Other critics, such as Juliana Naleiro, who published in the journal Miscellanea, published this essay, The Patriarch's Ball, Class Consciousness, Violence, and Dystopia in George Saunders' Vision of Contemporary America. Juliana Laneiro studies the representation of the differences between the dominant wealthy class and the working class in the US, in contemporary America. Also, David Ranco, in his article titled George Saunders and the Postmodern Working Class, discusses how the author represents class values in his stories and how he portrays the way that we perceive class and class differences, and how this perception has changed over the last 20 years. So in general, as you can see, critics agree that Saunders' fiction is sincere, empathic, compassionate, and concerned about social differences, especially about lower classes. It seems that Saunders does not believe, as other writers do, that the more money you have, the better person you are, or the more virtue you have. That is, the idea that success equals virtue, an idea that is deeply ingrained in the American mind from the times of the Puritans. Okay, so we are going to analyze the story, and the story begins with this sentence. Twice already Marie had pointed out the brilliance of the autumnal sun on the perfect field of corn. Okay, so the story is divided into 4 sections, 2 for each woman. Okay, so we have 2 protagonists, Marie and Kelly. Symmetry is very important in the story. We have 2 sections, as I say, it's Marie, Kelly, Marie, Kelly. So Marie begins and Kelly closes the story. Now, Marie is an upper middle class woman. Her name is not Mary, the common Mary, but Marie, the French refined version. She drives a Lexus, which is a quite expensive car. She has 2 children. Her husband, Robert, who is absent from the action, is described as a happy man, and all that we know about him is that he likes to laugh. He says ho ho every time the family buys an animal. Okay, so they seem to be pretty happy family, right? This is Marie talking about Robert, right? God bless Robert. There was a man. He would have no problem whatsoever with this family mission. She loved the way he had of saying ho ho whenever she brought home something new and unexpected. Okay, this is her husband. She loved him for his playfulness. You could bring home a hippo you'd put on a credit card. Both the ferret and the iguana had gone on credit cards, and he'd just say ho ho. Okay, so notice, I mean, that they have like a tradition of buying exotic animals, the ferret, the iguana, and they had a puppy or a dog already, and now they are going to buy a puppy and to put it on the credit card, and all the husband would say is ho ho. Okay, now the other protagonist of the story is Coley. Coley is lower class. She lives in the country. She lives close to a cornfield. She has 1 son and a husband who is also absent from the picture. But she is very different from Marie, or not. I mean, like, this is one of the things that Saunders is actually asking the readers. How different are they, or how similar are they, right? Okay, so the story is constructed in 2 parallel planes which converge around the puppy. And the way that, that Saunders writes makes us compare the women all the time, right? Okay. As I said, Marie is a woman who is very happy in this family. Laughter was encouraged. Her children are well loved, right? And she's very thankful for all that the Lord has given her. She said, "Thank you, Lord." She thought, as the Lexus flew through the cornfield, "You have given me so much." But here we have an indication that things were not always that easy for her. Struggles and the strength to overcome them. Grace and the new chances every day to spread that grace around. So we have the biblical reference here, again, to the idea that she is fortunate, she is thanking the Lord. And in her mind, she sang out, again, as a celebration, as she sometimes did when feeling that the world was good, and she had at last found her place in it. Ho, 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 ho. Okay, this is Marie. Now we are going to go back a little to the beginning of the story, and I already pointed out that the first sentence presents Marie as a happy, joyful woman. She is going with her children to pick up the puppy that Coley is selling, as you know. And at first, I mean, like, the readers are favorable towards Marie because she is like very happy, and she's talking about like how perfect everything is. And if you notice here, the word perfect appears in bold many times, right? I've also put it in red, the repetition, because repetition is important in the story of the words. Repetition of the brilliance of the autumnal sun on the perfect field of corn, because the brilliance of the autumnal sun on the perfect field of corn put in her mind of a haunted house, not a haunted house she had ever actually seen, but the mythical one that sometimes appear in her mind with adjacent graveyard and cat on a fence. Whenever she saw the brilliance of the autumnal sun and the perfect, etc., and she wanted to make sure that if the kids had a corresponding mythical haunted house that appeared in their minds, whenever they saw the brilliance of the etc., it would come up now, so that they could all experience it together, like friends, like the college friends on a road trip sound pot. Ha ha ha. Okay, so we see this is the beginning of the story, and again, we have the narrator. The narrator is a third-person omniscient narrator. It's extra-diegetical, meaning that it's not a participant in the action, right? And everything is focalized through the characters, so that the narrator is omniscient. He can get into Mary's mind and know how she feels, what she sees, and even the tensions, the little tensions that we can see here. Very subtle. But we have the idea that everything is not so perfect as it seems, right? Too much perfection, maybe. And here suddenly she sees a cornfield and she thinks of a haunted house because of course, all these references to cornfields and haunted house and the Children of the Corn, Stephen King's novel, and later on the film, right? So the tense of the verb is in the past, so that the narrator is telling everything that happened, right? And we have a sort of like distance to the action, so that we can see how she is feeling. Again, as I said, this discourse of optimism that is so pervasive in the American dream. I mean, like the idea of the happy family, going to buy a puppy, the beautiful children, the Lord, being thankful for everything, the Lexus, etc. Like the cornfield, right, is apparently beautiful, but it hides some dark secrets that we cannot see. And I think that the image of the corn is pretty good for that, because if you look at the corn, I mean, like, it's very beautiful, right? But then there are all these like horror novels and stories of the things you cannot see because they are hidden there, right? Okay. we know that she was not always that happy. Actually, she thinks, she remembers a situation in the past Halloweens, and then she thinks of her past when she was a little girl, and she says, she had known of that in her childhood, of this laughter that she has now in this family. Dad being so dour and mom so ashamed. If mom and dad's cart had tipped, dad would have given the cart a despairing kick, and mom would have stridden purposely away to reapply her lipstick. While she, despite she, Marie, would have nervously taken that horrid plastic army man she had named Brady into her mouth. So we see that her childhood was not as happy as her children's childhood, right? So here we have an indication that the father had some violent outbursts. The mother, we will know later on, she had a relationship. There is a reference to having an extramarital affair and not being happy with the father and forgetting her daughter for hours, right? Okay, so this is in the past, the things that she doesn't want to remember. Again, remember the other day we were talking about a recitative by Toni Morrison. In this case, Marie doesn't want. She remembers that she doesn't want. She insists how happy she is, okay? Now, one of the ways that Saunders has to establish a parallelism between Marie and Collie is the use of the word perfect, okay, which is a word that is used very often, especially in the first section, and then by Kelly. Like, for instance, when she says, yes, awesome, it was this also perfect. Now, notice that here it's in italics because it's incorrect. It should be perfectly, right? But here Saunders is pointing out to the fact that Collie is not an educated person, right? We have a reference to Marie as a college student going on a road trip and so on. But Collie here is not educated. Her language is very simple, and she uses some things very incorrectly, like for instance the word perfect instead of perfectly. Okay, so one of the things that that you can see, I mean, like one of the differences that you have is like she thinks of her past when I was a kid, and she was playing in the yard, right? We will talk about that in a minute. And she could see from the holes in the yard, she could see a gas station, Exxon, an accident corner, okay, like the place where accidents took place, I guess. And she says whole tree was actually two holes that if you line up them right up your eyes, would do this weird crossing thing, and you could play, oh my God, I'm so high, by staggering away with your eyes crossed going on, peace, man, peace. So here you have the idea of these kids playing to be high, right, playing drugs, if you want, a lower class kid. The difference between Collie playing that with Marie talking about going on a road trip with college students and smoking pot, right? Okay, Collie, she's married to her husband Jimmy, is the opposite of the good humor Robert. He seems to be a depressive man. He cries. He's not happy. And she tries to avoid him from suffering, and we will see this later on too. Like for instance, she remembers the last time she wants to get rid of the puppy because otherwise they would have the same problem they had with the kittens when he had to go and get rid of them. And he said, well, you have to do what you have to do. You got to do what you got to do, right? But then afterwards, this man, he goes and he cries in bed. But here we see a hint of her husband being violent or abusive towards her. Like, for instance, when he says, but sometimes when she got too smart ass, he would do this heart pinching thing on her arm while waltzing her around the bedroom, as if the place where he was pinching her were like her handle going, I'm not sure I totally heard what you just said to me. So she says, you did what you had to do, instead of saying, well, you were not raised in a farm, you were raised near a farm, right? So so instead of saying the truth, she presents herself as a submissive woman, and she tries to make things easy for Jimmy, right? Again, the idea of love, and how she interprets this idea of love is that the love, he would love, but this love in his case is mixed with snort. And when he's sort of like laughing, snorting in her hair, she likes it, and she says why that love snort meant so much to her. She had no freaking idea. It was just one of the weird things about the wonder that was her. Ha ha ha. So again, you see this relationship she has with her husband, and how she puts herself in a submissive position because she wants him to be happy, right? And the fact that he's happy, that he's laughing or snorting in her hair, makes her happy. So again, we have this parallelism between the husbands, between the idea of happiness and the idea of a difficult childhood and a lower social class. Okay. Okay. Now Marie is in shock when she gets into Collie's house, right? She calls that, wow, wow, what a super field trip for the kids. Marie thought, ha ha. And then the use of parentheses, I mean, you can see that there is this irony, right? I mean, like, on the one hand, she's trying to make the best out of it and being very democratic, because she's getting into this lower class home, but on the other hand, she's absolutely disgusted by what she sees. The filth, the mildew smell, the dry aquarium holding the single encyclopedia volume, the pasta pot on the bookshelf with an inflatable candy cane inexplicably sticking out of it. And although some might have been disgusted by the spare tire on the dining room table, by the way the glum mother dog, the presuming house pooper, was dragging its rear over the pile of clothing in the corner in a sitting position, straight leg, a moronic look of pleasure on her face, Marie realized, resisting the urge to rush to a sink and wash her hands, in part because the sink had a basketball in it, that what this really was deeply sad. So you have this double dialogue that Marie has in her, and that Saunders, I think, that is brilliantly representing here. The fact that she has these mixed feelings, right? I mean, she's disgusted, but she doesn't want to. She wants to pretend she is not, because she's very democratic and she is not prejudiced, of course, right? Okay. So besides besides the differences between Maria and Collie, they do have important things, an important thing in common, and this is the fact that they have, both of them have kids with problems. They have children that have behavior problems. In the case of Marie, her son Josh seems to have violent outbursts or behavioral problems, and the solution that Marie has found is to give him a Game Boy so that he can play video games with that, and be quiet, right? And she wants to get into that, and she's reading the instructions and how to play and to be very close to him, right? So so here you see that she doesn't want to admit that her son has a problem, although sometimes she says, for instance, Josh was less withdrawn lately. She says, well, it's much better now. But then when he does something, I mean, she looks at it as if it's nothing really like important and it's fun, right? Like when she says that he tried while doing latch the window, he would reach back with his non-controlling hand and swat at her affectionately. And yesterday they had shared a good laugh when he accidentally knocked off her glasses. So when he had accidentally knocked off her glasses, right? Instead of saying, what have you done, or whatever, or be careful, or whatever, they laugh as if it an accident. However, the careful readers will notice that this is something that Marie doesn't want to admit to herself. That is, in other words, that she doesn't want to admit to herself that her life is less than happy. Calle also is optimistic. She thinks that it will be different. She has a son, Bo, who also has behavioral problems or some kind of problems. He almost gets killed by crossing the road. And then she has decided to tie him with a chain to the tree. Right? She says when Bo got older, it would be different. Then he'd need his freedom. But now he just needs not to be free. Okay? This is a child that should be, according to the neighbors, right? And here in the States, I mean, there is a big thing about that, on medication. She says she's against it because she thinks that medication is not the solution, right? So she says, well, sometimes he was and sometimes he wasn't better with the medication. The meds made him grin his teeth and his fist would suddenly pound down. He'd broken plates that way and once a glass tabletop and got 4 stitches in his wrist. So she's not that happy about the effect that the medication has on the child. And she decides that it's better the solution she has found, right? So she says, today he didn't need the medication because he was safe in the yard because she had fixed it so perfect. Again, right, the use of the word perfect in italics. He was out there practicing pitching by filling his Yankees helmet with pebbles and winging them at the tree. He looked up and saw her and did the thing where he blew a kiss. Sweet little man, okay? So she has decided that it's better for him, instead of giving him his medication, which she thinks that is not good, right? She thinks it's better to tie him to a tree so that at least he can be outside and he can be playing in the garden and be safe. Now Saunders here is very subtly criticizing the use of medical treatment for behavior on children. This is something that he does too in the short story called Escape from Spiderhead, another short story that is included in 10th of December, and well, he criticizes the use of drugs for behavioral issues, right? Okay, so this is the situation. So now the thing here is that when Marie sees this child in the courtyard, she's horrified, right? She says, well, she was ready to adopt a white trash dog, haha, but then she went to the window and anthropologically, notice the word anthropological, like she's looking at everything from a distance, right, as if she was studying the situation. Pulling the blind aside, was shocked, so shocked that she dropped the blind and shook her head as if trying to wake herself. Shocked, again, to see a young boy just a few years younger than Josh harnessed and chained to a tree via some sort of doohickey by which she pulled the blind back again, sure she could not have seen what she thought she had. When the boy ran, the chains pulled out. He was running now, looking back at her, showing off. When he reached the end of the chain, he jerked and he dropped his as if shot. Okay, so she sees that, she sees she sees Bo, she sees the child in the garden, and how he is chained, right, and drinking from a dog's bowl, right. Now her son comes and she let him look because, according to her, he should know that the world was not all lessons and iguanas and Nintendo. It was also this muddy, simple boy tethered like an animal. Okay, so when she sees the boy, the first thing she thinks is that it's inhuman, that Calle is treating the boy as if he was an animal. And she decides against buying the other animal, the puppy, right? She thinks that she cannot take the puppy from this house because she is not happy with what she has seen, right? she has sort of like thought that the boy, she tries to be generous to the boy, and she thinks of herself, right? She says, if only she could have said to him with a single look, so she doesn't even speak to him or try to go close to him. She's thinking of that. Life will not necessarily always be like this. Your life could suddenly blossom into something wonderful. It can happen. It happened to me. Okay, so she has a projection, and she identifies herself with the child. And suddenly she thinks that she needs to do something, which is basically leave the house and call the children's service, so that they take the children, they take the child away from Colin, who is, in her opinion, abusing him, in the sense of treating him, not abusing him, treating him as if he was an animal. Okay, well, suddenly we are faced with a situation where she has Collie. When they leave, she has to do something about the puppy, because remember, as I said, what Collie wants to do is she wants to make her husband happy. So she wants to do something for his love. She's concerned that he's going to come and he's going to be angry. Also some indication that he might get violent. So what she has to do what she has to do. Don't look back, she said in her head. She goes to the cornfield, and she's like running, right? Walking along, but she's not slim, so she's thinking in her mind of the people that go running, and thinking of herself that she's not like that. She said, haha, she wasn't stupid, she just made bad choice, right? Thinking of what she could have done, and what the reality of her life, right? She takes the action of taking the puppy to the cornfield as if she was helping Jimmy by making his life easier, by killing something so he know. All she was doing was walking away from. So this idea of escaping, of denying that she's killing or abandoning the puppy, and leaving the poor puppy all alone there, right? Pushing the words killing puppy out of her head, she put in her head the words beautiful sunny day. Wow, I'm loving this beautiful sunny day so much. So you see Saunders' irony here, how in this space, again, we go back to the beginning, we go back to the cornfield, and in this space can be a place of terror. Let's say it's a place where a puppy gets killed, but it is also regarded as the sunny, beautiful, sunny day that she is enjoying and loving so much. So basically she is trying to believe that nothing has happened, right? Again, so we see this similarity between Collie and Marie, both of them looking at the cornfield, looking at the sun on this beautiful sunny day, and trying to make the best out of their lives, right? At the end of the story, again, we finish with the word perfect, like Beau, who wasn't perfect, but she loved him. I've highlighted the words loved, right? So that you see the importance of love in the story. We have this idea of the mothers who would do anything for love, again, and here how she thinks that what she's doing for him is the best she can do, because he's happy enough. You see here it says that he's happy enough. He smiled. The day before he was in the house, he had been screaming, frustrated, and today he was looking at flowers. And she, again, like her, right? I mean, like who is looking at the beautiful sunny day. So she thinks of herself as a savior of her son, and she did that for love, right? She did. So you gotta do what you gotta do. That's the lesson of the story. So this is a story. I mean, like where Saunders is at the beginning. You could see that apparently he misled, if you want, the reader at the beginning into thinking that we could sympathize with Marie, but because Marie is so false. I mean, she tries to be so perfect. So basically, I mean, like in the end, we tend to see Collie more real, and we can understand how she's acting and why she's acting. I don't know. I mean, like again, this is he doesn't offer a closed solution, or it's not moral at all. I mean, like the story is not moral. He leaves it to the reader to decide what would you do. Okay, what would you do in this situation? Who do you think is doing the right way? Do you think that Marie is doing the right way, is doing the right thing by calling the services, the children's service, or is Collie doing the right thing by having bow tied with a chain to a tree so that he doesn't hurt himself, right? So all these questions, I mean, I think that Saunders is asking the readers to consider this idea of feeling some empathy. Especially, we see his concern for the lower class and how the wealthy upper class looks down on the lower classes, right? And by acting one way, because the moment that Marie decides not to buy the puppy, she's forcing Collie to kill the puppy, basically, right? So how the upper classes in a way force the lower classes to behave the way they do in the story, right? So this is the story, and again, many questions, right? I think this is the what I think it's good about good literature, right? That it opens many questions for the readers to consider. And again, if you want to ask me anything or to participate in the forum, well, please do. Okay, I think it's a great story for debate, and I hope that you like the fiction of George Saunders. Okay, thank you.